We live in an age where much of our day-to-day business has been affected by technology. Over the last decade or so, countless industries have adopted pieces of tech which change the way we go about certain things and shape consumer habits. There's now a whole generation of children who will likely not know what a checkbook is, let alone understand the struggle of having to queue up in a bank to do what can be done today in seconds on a smartphone. However, we've not seen the end to this change yet. The Future of Banking report from Clydesdale and Yorkshire Bank alongside insight company Foresight Factory has suggested that there are still things round the corner which would change consumer habits once again. Joining me in the studio to discuss this report is Mark Curran, the Director of Payments and Open Banking at CYBG, along with Thom Almeida, the report writer and Senior Analyst at Foresight Factory. So Mark, just turning to you first, what are some of the ways which banking has changed in the past decade or so?
So we've seen a huge change. We've seen customers, not surprisingly, using technological devices to interact with their banks. We've seen them spend less time in branches, and we've seen them use the convenience of those devices to do things like manage their accounts and even now process checks. You can clear a check using your smart device. So we're seeing that technological advancement really taking hold. But for us, it's really important to both see where we are now, but looking forward, kind of try and predict what devices of the future will start to provide services for customers and banks, and also kind of work on trust and customer safety and make sure we don't leave any of those customers behind.
And just carrying on through that, what was the main strand of thinking behind the Future of Banking report? Why was it written?
We came to the conclusion that to enable us to figure out our future shape and strategy, it was important to understand where banking was going to go, and more importantly, how our customers were going to interact with us. So we commissioned the report to look at, over the next 0 to 10 years, how customer behaviours might change and what we have to think about in terms of how we react to those changes so that we are current and we're available for our customers in the way they want to interact with us.
And Thom, just to bring you in there, that's exactly what Foresight Factory look at. They look into the future. So what kind of things, what main innovations can the consumer expect over the next, say, decade or so in terms of, artificial intelligence, wearable technology, maybe biometrics and security?
So some of the key findings that we saw in the report were that chat-based interfaces, for instance, and voice-powered banking will really elevate the brand customer experience. Also, financial advice will increasingly be delivered through artificial intelligence and virtual reality. And when it comes to payment services, wearable devices and also biometric payment services will increasingly define the ways in which customers pay for goods.
And often with new technology comes new security worries. Did the report highlight any specific concerns consumers or banks in general had about security going forward?
Yeah, so from the research, we found that two things in particular are relevant when it comes to security. The first is authentication processes and verification processes. So 20% of consumers say that they have used their fingerprint as a form of ID, and a further 28% are interested in doing so. And of course, this is much more secure than just using a password, which most people use these days. The second is addressing cybercrime worries. So from our research, we found that 86% of consumers in the UK believe that the risk of cybercrime is increasing. So for banks, it's really crucial to focus on this element for consumers.
In terms of what you just said there about trust within banking and security, I guess it's a question for both of you. What does the banking sector need to do to make sure consumers have that trust and that it isn't dropped?
I think two things. So for banks in the online sphere, it's key to safeguard consumers' personal data. Especially given the recent Cambridge and Facebook Analytica scandal with the data breaches, consumers are increasingly focused on the safeguarding of personal data. Typically, the financial services sector has been good in this regard. When it comes to offline trust, I think the human service element, the human customer service is still going to be important going forward.
Absolutely. Mark, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think kind of the industry recognises the need to do two things. One, to make every channel as secure as it can possibly be, and biometrics will play a greater and greater role in that, not just fingerprint, but kind of iris scanning, facial recognition and voice recognition. The second thing is recognising that customers are migrating to digital services. It's inherent and important for banks to make sure that digital services are always on and always available, because trust isn't just about security, it's about availability. Is the service there when I need it? And kind of those are the two areas that we're seeing a lot of focus across the industry, indeed with kind of the PSD2 regulations that are coming in into act in September, kind of that mandates stronger security and authentication on pretty much every bank in Europe. So there's a lot of focus in those two areas.
Okay, so if people want to find out a bit more about what we've been talking about today, or maybe look at the Future of Banking report, where can they go to?
Yeah, the report's available. It's in the cybg.com website in the News Centre section, and it's available right now.
Mark Curran, Director of Payments and Open Banking at CYBG, and Thom Almeida, the report writer and Senior Analyst at Foresight Factory. Thank you very much for your time.